Welcome to Wentworth Falls, and I'm going to try an experiment. I'm intrigued by the concept, and I really wanted to see if I could share it with you in a meaningful way. Basically, where I'm starting, I've chosen this location because the path is not challenging, so we can really take advantage of being in the moment and present and taking in our surroundings without having to be worried about whether I'm going to trip over and fall. So that was the first priority. Secondly, the location is beautiful and the landscape is lovely. So normally forest bathing would be taken with a physical guide. And so this is quite different, as in I'll be attempting to share what I'm experiencing with you, whatever your circumstance might be. So it started as a practice in Japan as a way of countering the tech-heavy lifestyles the Japanese were experiencing in the 80s. So it started in the 1980s. In Japan, it's called Shinrin-Yoku, which literally means to immerse yourself in the forest or among the trees. And it's not a new concept. Getting out in nature, we know how good that is for you. So it's just experienced in a slightly different way. So what I'm going to attempt to do is be in my presence, if that makes any sense. So I'll share what I'm experiencing. The idea is that we choose the right location, which is what I've attempted to do here, that we really, really slow down and observe. We use all our senses. So it's not about meditating. It's not about sitting there and closing your eyes and just listening to my voice, although I will be guiding you vocally. And as I said, I'm new to this as well. So let's just enjoy and see what comes of this experience. There are beautiful bird sounds this morning. The sun is starting to come up over above the hillside over there and make its presence felt. And we've got just under a minute to go. So what I'll do is I'll turn around and introduce myself to you now. All right, so good morning, everybody. For those who haven't met me before, my name's Lynn, and we're meeting today in Wentworth Falls, which is in the Blue Mountains. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional lands of the Darug and Gundungurra people and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And it's time to start. All right, so first of all, we need to be aware of our presence, and that means our own physical presence as well as the environment that we're actually located in. So for me personally, it's comfortably warm. There's no breeze, the air is still, so there's no air blowing on my skin. I'm aware of the sun just warming the left-hand side of my face. And I'm going to very slowly walk, and we really want to be observing everything that we feel around us. And we can see over on my right here, if we look, I'm observing the light of the sun glistening on the grasses, on the dew, on the drops of dew on the grasses, glistening like jewels, really sparkling on the grasses here next to the path. And as I walk, there's the constant sound of the cockatoos behind me, as well as other forest birds. I'm walking on a gravel path. So under the soles of my feet, although I'm wearing shoes, I can feel the evenness of the path. I can feel stones under my feet. And if I look over to my left, we can see the ferns on my left-hand side. And in amongst the ferns, large spider webs, again with dew, sitting on the spider webs, forming a nature's art. Nature's art has depicted there as the sun shines through the spider webs. I hear a new bird call, more tuneful than the cockatoos, less raucous. And I observe another spider web, more of nature's art. It's summer here in Australia, and a fly just landed on my elbow, which is all part of the morning experience. So I'm trying not to be annoyed by the fly that's landed on my elbow, focusing instead on the landscape around me. And here we get to moving closer to some of the ferns and really observe their shape, the shape of their leaves. And as we move back and walk along the path, we keep listening to the birds in the background. In the distance, a body of water. And I observe the blue-grey colours of these bushes and the shape of their leaves. And on my right, I'm taking in the colour of the hillside, the greens, the yellows. In the foreground, in behind them, the greys of the tree trunks. A new bird flies overhead, introducing a different call to the sound mix. And all along the path we see more spider webs with dew just sitting on them, making them glisten, with the larger dewdrops on the flowers themselves. The path rises in front of us, and a different shaped fern. At this point, I'm aware of just a sea of spider webs across the landscape, all glistening in the sun. I notice a dragonfly landing on the grass stalk with its red body. I don't know if I've got it in frame for you. I hope so. Possibly there. The dragonfly alights from one stalk and moves across to another. And now a different shaped fern again, completely different shape. And I touch the surface of the fern to feel. It feels brittle almost. And yet another different kind of fern, this time a tree fern. Constantly aware of the cockatoos. I observe a different flower. With just the hint of pink starting to open. And its spiny leaves, or prickly. As we step under the partial shade, as the forest closes in, the sun offers less strength. That warmth is no longer on the side of my face. I'm surrounded by a sea of these ferns. On my right, I come across a young eucalyptus tree, just shedding its bark. And the trunk of the tree feels smooth and cool as I run my hand over it. And observe even the tiniest trickle of sap running down the trunk. I'm crouching to duck under these branches. And now on my left, I reach another eucalyptus tree, this one much older and larger, and with that beautiful smooth feel under my hand. As I walk slowly across the path, I'm aware of the tree roots crossing the path, acknowledging them, aware of them, mindful not to let them impede my path. And as we turn the corner, we reach a point in the path where we can overlook the water with the sun glistening across its surface. We hear the sound of birds. We assume that they're ducks landing or taking off from the water. And we return to the main path. As we walk along the path, we notice small wildflowers in different colours. First of all, yellow, followed by blue, and we continue to walk. Once again, momentarily focused on our feet as we negotiate a muddy section on the path. As it comes up close to the water's edge, I notice that the eucalyptus leaves are all festooned with droplets of dew glistening in the sun. And we continue. The smells around us are only very faint, not noticeable unless you're really seeking them out. Very faint forest smells. A mixture of tea tree and eucalyptus, but only the faintest hint of it. As I walk A spider's web brushes against my hand. Only the slightest touch. Not a sensation that's disturbing, just one to be aware of. As in day to day, we have a decision to make. Should we continue to the left along the shoreline, or should we turn right and take a slightly rising path? My inclination is to turn left. I notice a small plant on the right of the path with the beautiful colours of yellow, a touch of orange, and a beautiful lime green. It's almost soft, not quite soft, but almost. And I notice another one producing flowers. Next to it, a young eucalypt, young gum, with the newest of foliage emerging in shades of red. And now we're down at the water's edge. I become aware of the faintest sound of a frog call. Bok, bok, bok. I'm also aware of a kookaburra in the distance. I pause to listen to the kookaburras. A breeze has risen, and I can feel it cooling my skin. I pause to look at these beautiful red flowers. Which seem to dominate this part of the bush. And I pause to admire this beautiful native plant. Again, we choose the path that follows the waterline. I stop to observe the new bud of a flower just opening on this native banksia tree. And again, I'm aware of the kookaburras calling in the distance. I notice a patch of moss and pause to take a closer look at it. I observe the colour of the water, stained by the gum leaves that fall into it from all around, turning the colour a tea colour. I pause to take in the reflections. And I've been reminded to look everywhere, including up. Take in what's above. We continue I notice the contrast between this incredibly rough, textured bark next to this beautiful, smooth, grey. Once the bark's fallen away from this tree. I pause to look at the different mosses and lichens. And all the while, the different shades of green. Our tranquility has been momentarily interrupted by a train. We won't be annoyed by it, we'll acknowledge it, it will pass. The path leads to a small beach. I touched a branch and dewdrops fell on my head. I paused to look at these beautiful white flowers and observe some more dew still lying on the bushes. As we reached the beach, a group of ducks who haven't noticed me yet or perhaps they have, perhaps they're keeping an eye on me. I become aware of the cicadas starting their morning call. After pausing for the nighttime hours. And once again, I pause to enjoy the reflections. I notice a dragonfly hovering above the water. No. I hear another bird call. And once again, reminded to look up. We slowly turn to make our way back the way we came. To allow us to observe the forest from the opposite angle, the opposite perspective. Pause to take in the beauty of rocks. The light filtering through the forest onto the path. Accentuating the shadows, which we hadn't noticed walking in the opposite direction. And now they're very visible. I notice different colours, different textures, even dead leaves can present beauty. We stop to look at this twisted shape of the tree. We acknowledge the presence of another person. Greet them with a silent nod. And we return to the water's edge. I'm going to gently bring you out of our, not really a meditation. We've got 5 minutes left to go. And I just want to ask you how you felt. Is this something that works? We were blessed with a beautiful day. We couldn't have asked for better in terms of the weather. Is it something that we should do again, do you think? All right, so we're back almost at the beginning of that first part of the trail before we actually reach the lakeside. So that fellow whose presence I acknowledged, there he is. He's just boarded his canoe. I'm going to turn away from the sun because I'm having trouble seeing the screen. Well, let's have one last look up. This was my aim, this was my goal, to give you something beautiful and relaxing. Now you notice that I did not give too much information on flowers or plants or trees or even bird calls because I felt that that would take the focus away on what we were actually observing, which was literally just the environment around us. I had to force myself to slow down my pace. And now there's a So that is, as far as I understand it, that is the ethos of forest bathing, is that you really are just being present, observing what's around you, how you feel, what you're feeling. And I hope that I was able to sort of bring that to you somehow so that you could at least have a chance of experiencing what I'm experiencing this morning.